back to the channel. Today we're going to unravel some incredibly complex events in Genoa. Rumors are circulating around the Newman family, but what's the truth? In this video, I'll summarize the plot points that will be revealed in the next episode. Stay tuned to see what happens. Welcome back to our channel, where we bring you the most explosive and heartbreaking updates from the thrilling world of Genoa City. Today is a beautiful day to dive deep into the latest dramatic twists and turns that are keeping us all on the edge of our seats. Let's get right into the intense action. The pristine, wealthy enclave of Genoa City has been violently shaken to its very core following a catastrophic bloodbath at the legendary Abbott mansion. Jack Abbott, the brilliant and revered patriarch of the Abbott dynasty, has been fighting a desperate, agonizing battle for his life following a brutal stabbing. The horrific attack has left the entire community paralyzed with shock, but the true nightmare is only just beginning for his wife, Diane Jenkins Abbott. Instead of being comforted as a grieving spouse, Diane has been thrust into the center of a sinister, perfectly orchestrated frame-up designed by the dangerously psychotic Patty Williams. Patty's brilliant manipulation of the crime scene, complete with her own self-inflicted wounds, has painted a terrifyingly convincing picture of Diane as a deranged attempted murderer. With the walls closing in and the truth buried beneath layers of deception, will Diane be able to survive this meticulously crafted trap? Rushing through the sterile, brightly lit corridors of Genoa City Memorial Hospital, Diane experiences a suffocating wave of dread that has nothing to do with the clinical environment. The moment her frantic footsteps echo against the linoleum floors, she is met with a physical wall of suspicion and hostility. Nurses and doctors, individuals who once greeted the Abbott matriarch with respectful nods and warm smiles, now cast sharp, judgmental glares in her direction. The toxic whispers have already infected the hospital staff. Patty Williams's fabricated narrative has spread like a vicious wildfire, branding Diane as a volatile, cold-blooded attacker who snapped and tried to slaughter her own husband. Every hushed conversation Diane passes feels like a physical blow, isolating her in a building filled with people. How can a woman fight against a lie that has already been accepted as the absolute truth by everyone around her? Desperation claws at Diane's throat as she attempts to intercept the hospital staff, her voice trembling with raw, unfiltered panic. She tries to frantically explain the undeniable reality of the evening. Patty Williams, driven by her historic, lethal obsession with Jack, is the true monster who plunged the knife into his chest. Diane pleads with the onlookers and the lingering Abbott family members, recounting how Patty slashed her own arm to create a flawless illusion of victimhood. However, Diane's desperate defense is repeatedly cut short by the cold, dismissive expressions of the medical professionals who have been poisoned by past prejudices. Diane's own controversial history in Genoa City, a history filled with intense manipulation and even a fake death, is now being weaponized against her, making her the absolute perfect scapegoat. Will anyone in this hospital possess the courage to look past Diane's flawed history and see the terrified, innocent wife standing before them? The suffocating tension in the hospital corridor reaches a boiling point with the heavy, authoritative arrival of Detective James Burrow. Burrow, a seasoned investigator known for his stoic demeanor and relentless pursuit of justice, steps into the chaotic scene with a chilling sense of purpose. He does not approach Diane with the gentle empathy reserved for a victim's traumatized spouse. Instead, his posture radiates intense suspicion and accusation. Burrow has already been heavily influenced by the corrupt, fabricated psychological profile provided by Dr. Lawrence Markham, who falsely corroborated Patty's twisted tale. Markham's deliberate lies have painted Diane as an unhinged, dangerous woman who violently escaped his psychiatric care to exact bloody revenge on Jack. Armed with this damning, manufactured evidence, Burrow corners Diane, his eyes narrowing with deep, investigative scrutiny. Can Diane possibly outmaneuver a seasoned detective who has already been fed a flawless platter of lies by a corrupt medical professional? The interrogation that unfolds in the harsh fluorescent lighting of the hospital hallway is nothing short of psychological torture for Diane. Detective Burrow relentlessly presses her for answers, his questions sharp and accusatory, focusing heavily on Patty's self-inflicted lacerations and the blood found on Diane's clothing. He demands to know why Diane was found covered in Jack's blood, twisting her desperate attempts to save her husband's life into concrete evidence of her guilt. Diane's heart pounds against her ribs as she realizes the sheer magnitude of Patty's dark conspiracy. Patty didn't just stab Jack. She orchestrated a theatrical masterpiece of deception, ensuring that every drop of blood and every frantic movement Diane made would only tighten the legal noose around her neck. Burroughs' refusal to entertain the possibility of Patty's guilt leaves Diane feeling as though she is screaming into an endless, dark void. What drastic measures will Diane be forced to take when the very hands of justice are being manipulated by a madwoman? As Detective Burroughs' interrogation grows increasingly hostile, Diane faces a terrifying internal battle to maintain her composure. She knows that Dr. Markham's corrupt evaluation has labeled her as emotionally unstable and prone to violent, erratic outbursts. If Diane allows her boiling frustration and profound terror to manifest as anger, she will inadvertently validate the exact psychological profile Markham has submitted to the police. Every instinct in her body urges her to scream, to lash out at the sheer injustice of being framed for the murder of the man she loves, but she forces herself to swallow the bile of her panic. She must project an aura of absolute, unwavering calm, masking the agonizing heartbreak that is tearing her soul apart. But how long can a woman hold back a tidal wave of grief and fury before the dam finally breaks and destroys her entirely? A momentary reprieve from Burroughs' relentless questioning allows Diane to steal a heartbreaking glimpse through the heavy glass window of the intensive care unit. The sight that greets her is enough to shatter her remaining resolve into a million pieces. Jack Abbott, the titan of the corporate world, the man whose vibrant energy once filled every room he entered, now lies motionless, a fragile shell of his former self. He is tethered to a terrifying array of life support machines, his chest rising and falling only with the mechanical assistance of a ventilator. The rhythmic, agonizing beeping of the heart monitor is the only sound proving he is still alive in that sterile, lonely room. Diane presses her trembling hand against the cold glass, tears streaming down her face as she silently begs the universe to spare his life. Will Jack's formidable spirit be strong enough to pull him back from the dark abyss of this catastrophic medical crisis? Staring at Jack's unconscious form, a horrifying realization washes over Diane, chilling her to the bone. Jack is not just her beloved husband. He is the sole witness to the bloody tragedy at the Abbott mansion. Jack is the only person on earth who can definitively testify that Patty Williams was the one wielding the knife and that Diane was merely a desperate savior trying to stop the bleeding. As long as Jack remains trapped in this deep, unresponsive coma, his silence serves as Patty's ultimate weapon and Diane's greatest vulnerability. Diane is entirely paralyzed by the cruel irony of her situation. The man she loves is dying, and his inability to speak is the very thing that will send her to prison for his attempted murder. With her only alibi silenced by a ventilator, who will step forward to save Diane from the impending nightmare of a wrongful conviction? Suddenly, the agonizing monotony of the ICU is shattered by a frantic change in the rhythm of the medical monitors. The sharp, urgent beeping draws the immediate attention of the rushing medical staff, and Diane's heart leaps into her throat. Kyle Abbott, who has been fiercely and violently defending his mother against the hospital's whispers, rushes to Diane's side, his eyes wide with a mixture of terror and desperate hope. Through the glass, they witness a miraculous sight. Jack's eyelids begin to flutter, his fingers twitching weakly against the stark white hospital sheets. It is a moment of profound, breathtaking relief. The patriarch is fighting his way back to the surface after hovering on the brink of death. Diane holds her breath, praying that Jack will awaken, point a finger at the true culprit, and instantly shatter Patty Williams' web of lies. But in the unpredictable, treacherous world of Genoa City, is any miracle ever truly as simple as it seems? The tension in the hospital corridor is palpable, a thick, suffocating blanket of anticipation as the lead doctor rushes into Jack's room to assess his vital signs. Detective Burroughs steps closer to the glass, his notebook ready, anticipating the victim's first words that will undoubtedly close this violent, high-profile case. Diane and Kyle cling to each other, tears of joy threatening to spill as Jack finally, agonizingly, opens his eyes. He looks around the sterile room, his gaze sweeping over the complex medical equipment and the unfamiliar faces of the nurses with a look of profound bewilderment. Diane waits for the spark of recognition, the familiar warmth in Jack's eyes that will signal the end of this horrific ordeal and the beginning of their pursuit of justice against Patty. Will Jack's awakening be the ultimate salvation Diane so desperately needs, or is a darker, more tragic twist waiting to unfold? As the doctor gently questions Jack, the joyous relief in the air instantly evaporates, replaced by a chilling, absolute horror. Jack's eyes are wide, but they are entirely blank, devoid of the sharp intellect and deep affection that define him. The catastrophic surgical complications and the profound trauma of the brutal stabbing have inflicted a devastating toll on his brain. Jack is suffering from severe selective amnesia or perhaps a profound expressive aphasia. He looks at Diane and Kyle with vacant confusion, unable to recall the violent events of the evening, unable to remember Patty's psychotic break, and tragically unable to recognize the very woman who is currently facing prison for his attempted murder. The silence that follows this revelation is deafening, a crushing blow that shatters Diane's world. How can Diane possibly prove her innocence when the only man who knows the truth cannot even remember his own name? The news of Jack's severe memory loss will not remain a secret for long, and in the twisted, calculating mind of Patty Williams, this tragic medical complication is nothing short of a divine gift. Patty, who has been flawlessly playing the role of the traumatized victim, will undoubtedly seize upon Jack's amnesia to fortify her lethal narrative. She will quickly spin the story to Detective Burrow and Dr. Markham, insisting that Jack's mind has mercifully blocked out the trauma of the attack precisely because it was perpetrated by his own wife. Patty will argue that the psychological shock of Diane's supposed betrayal is what fractured Jack's memory, twisting his tragic vulnerability into the final nail in Diane's coffin. Patty's ability to manipulate tragedy into triumph is unparalleled, and she will use Jack's blank stare as definitive proof of Diane's guilt. Who can possibly dismantle Patty's brilliant psychotic logic when every piece of evidence seemingly aligns with her lies? Standing outside the ICU, Diane Jenkins Abbott is completely consumed by a level of despair she has never known. She is entirely cornered, trapped in a suffocating nightmare where the truth is held hostage within the damaged mind of her husband. She is facing an impossible, uphill battle against a brilliant psychopath who has anticipated her every move, a corrupt doctor willing to falsify medical records, and a skeptical detective eager to close a high-profile case. Kyle's volcanic fury and unwavering support are the only things keeping Diane tethered to reality, but even his fierce protection may not be enough to stop the relentless machinery of the justice system from crushing her. As the shadows of Genoa City grow darker and the threat of handcuffs looms closer, Diane must dig into the deepest, most ruthless parts of her own past to survive. Will Diane find a way to unlock Jack's memories before she is locked away in a prison cell for the rest of her life?